The handcuffs clicked shut before Emily Parker could finish her sentence. "What? No, wait. This is a mistake," she said, her voice jumping as two officers pulled her arms behind her back. The metal bit into her wrists. Around her, the sidewalk seemed to tilt. A patrol car, doors swung open. "Ma'am, stop resisting," one officer said, even though she wasn't moving at all. People on the block had gone quiet. A few stared from porches. Others watched through windows. Emily's face burned. She had always imagined moments like this looked different, louder, messier, happening to someone else. "I just asked him if he lived here," she said, breathless. "That's all I did." The officer nearest her didn't answer. He guided her toward the car, firm and practiced. Emily's heart hammered as she was pressed against the hood, the cold metal shocking through her blouse. 10 minutes earlier, she'd been stepping out of her car with a bag of groceries, scanning the street the way she'd learned to. She'd grown up hearing stories, warnings, really, about neighborhoods like this. Be careful. Don't engage. Trust your instincts. So when she saw a black man unlocking the door of the building she was touring, she'd asked, politely, "Can I help you?" That was when everything unraveled. Now she was being detained, in broad daylight, in front of strangers. As the officer reached for the back door, something fell from Emily's pocket and skidded across the pavement. A laminated badge, face up. The officer paused, eyes dropping to it. He frowned. "If you're listening this far, thank you, because what that badge says is about to change how everyone sees this moment." The officer picked it up slowly, and then his radio crackled with a name that didn't match hers at all. "Step back," the second officer said suddenly, his hand lifting as his partner froze. Emily felt the pressure ease just slightly as the officer who had picked up the badge turned it over. His eyes narrowed, then lifted to her face. "This says City Housing Outreach," he said. "You work for them?" Emily swallowed. "I'm an intern," she said quickly. "I was scheduled to meet the property manager. I dropped my badge when you grabbed me." The officer didn't respond right away. He glanced down the block, then back at the building. The man Emily had questioned earlier stood near the door now, hands visible, phone still in his grip. He looked calm, confused, not threatening in any way. The first officer cleared his throat. "Dispatch," he said into his radio. "Can you confirm the call details again?" Emily's chest burned as she finally took a full breath. The cuffs were still on, but no one was pushing her now. The moment stretched, awkward and heavy. "I didn't mean any harm," she said quietly. "I just thought." She stopped herself. She didn't know how to finish the sentence without sounding worse. The officer holding the badge looked at her again, this time with something closer to curiosity than suspicion. "You're saying you initiated the contact?" "Yes," Emily said. "I asked if he lived there." The man by the door spoke up then, voice steady. "I told her I did." Then she stepped back and made a call. Emily flinched. She remembered dialing before she even realized she had. Habit. Fear she'd never questioned until now. The radio crackled again. "Units advised," dispatch said. Original report described a white male attempting forced entry. No mention of a disturbance initiated by a resident. The officers exchanged a look. Emily's stomach dropped, because suddenly it wasn't just about why she was in cuffs. It was about why the call never matched the truth at all. The officer removed one cuff, then paused, leaving the other locked in place. "Not yet," he said, almost to himself. Emily's wrist throbbed as blood rushed back into her hand. Relief tried to surface, but it stalled when she saw the way both officers now looked at her. Not angry, not calm. Focused. "Emily Parker," the first officer said, reading from his tablet. "You called in a suspicious person report." "Yes," she said. "I thought." "We know what you thought," he replied, not unkindly. "What we're sorting out is what you said." The man from the building stepped closer, stopping at the edge of the sidewalk. "I've lived here 12 years, he said. "Name's Marcus Reed. I unlock my door every day." Emily met his eyes for the first time since the cuffs clicked shut. There was no anger there, just something steadier. "Tired." "I'm sorry," she said, the words coming out thin. "I really am." Marcus nodded once, but didn't speak again. The officer tapped his screen. "Your call said the man was trying to break in and refused to identify himself. That accurate. Emily's mouth went dry. I don't remember saying that. But you did, the officer said. It's recorded. A quiet settled over the block. A few neighbors had edged closer now, arms crossed, watching. Emily felt every one of them. I panicked, she whispered. I believe things I was told growing up. No one answered that. The second officer finally removed the other cuff. The metal slid free, leaving red marks behind. You're not under arrest, he said. But this isn't over. Emily flexed her hands, heart racing. What does that mean? It means, he said, your report may have caused an unlawful detention. Her breath caught. If you're wondering how often that happens, he added quietly, stay with this, because the next step surprised all of us. His radio crackled again. Units, dispatch said, supervisor en route. Body cam review requested. Emily looked from the officers to Marcus, then back at the patrol car. The truth was finally in the open, and it had brought backup. The supervisor arrived with his lights still on. A marked SUV rolled up fast, brakes hissing as it stopped beside the patrol car. The doors opened, and a tall man in a pressed uniform stepped out, eyes already scanning the scene. The small crowd stiffened. Marcus took a step back toward his doorway. What do we have? The supervisor asked. Unlawful detention concern, one officer said. Caller initiated contact. Report doesn't match recorded call. The supervisor's jaw tightened. Body cams, running since arrival. Good, he said. Let's walk it back. Emily stood frozen as the officers replayed the call on a tablet. Her own voice filled the air, thinner and sharper than she remembered. There's a man forcing his way into the building. I'm scared he won't answer me. Marcus didn't move. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. Emily's face burned as each word landed. She wanted to explain how fear had rushed in before thought, how the stories she grew up hearing had shaped what she believed she was seeing. But none of that changed the recording. That statement triggered our response, the supervisor said, which led to his detention. Marcus spoke calmly. I was handcuffed, he said, in front of my neighbors. Emily's stomach dropped. I didn't know, she whispered. But now you do, the supervisor said. The tension eased slightly as officers turned their attention away from Marcus and toward Emily. Not aggressively, carefully. You're free to go home, the supervisor told Marcus. We'll follow up with you. Marcus nodded once and disappeared inside. Emily watched the door close. Something inside her shifted, quiet, heavy, permanent. The supervisor turned back to her. Ms. Parker, he said, this incident will be reviewed for false reporting. Her breath caught. Am I being arrested? Not right now, he said. But you should expect a call. As he walked away, one officer lingered. There's one more thing, he said, lowering his voice. Your badge? It belongs to a program serving this neighborhood. Emily looked down at it in her hand and realized the people she feared were the ones who had been helping her all along. Emily's phone rang before she made it back to her car. She flinched at the sound, heart jumping as if another set of cuffs was about to close around her wrists. The screen showed an unknown number. Emily Parker, a voice said when she answered. This is Lieutenant Sarah Collins with the department. I need you to come down to the station. Emily's throat tightened. Am I in trouble? There are questions about the call you placed, the lieutenant replied. Please don't discuss the incident with anyone until we speak. The line went dead. Emily sat in the driver's seat, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. The block she just walked down looked different now. Quieter, less threatening. She noticed small details she'd missed before. Kids' bikes leaning against a fence, a woman watering plants, the sound of laughter drifting from an open window. At home, she paced her apartment, replaying everything. The way Marcus had looked at her, the calm in his voice, the way the officer's tone had shifted once the truth surfaced. She thought about the stories she'd grown up hearing, the warnings passed down like facts. She'd never questioned them. She just carried them. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she sat in a small interview room at the station. Lieutenant Collins across from her, a recorder on the table. Emily, the lieutenant said, this is not about intent. It's about impact. Emily nodded, tears pressing at her eyes. I know. You reported a crime that wasn't happening, the lieutenant continued. That led to a black man being detained in his own neighborhood. Emily's chest ached. Understand? The lieutenant slid a document across the table. We've also reviewed body cam footage, she said. And there's something else you need to see. She turned the tablet around. The video showed Marcus, already handcuffed, being pushed against a patrol car. Emily covered her mouth. Because she hadn't just caused fear. She'd caused harm. The video ended, but the room stayed heavy. Emily stared at the frozen frame. Marcus's hands cuffed behind his back, his face turned slightly away from the camera. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't resisting. He was waiting. Lieutenant Collins shut off the tablet. That's the detainment your call set in motion, she said. Emily swallowed hard. What happens now? We continue the review, the lieutenant said. And there's another detail that matters. She slid a second file forward. Inside was a printed screenshot from a nearby building security camera. The angle was wide, clear. It showed Marcus unlocking the front door with his own key, before Emily ever spoke to him. Emily's breath caught. This footage came from a neighbor, the lieutenant said. He came in after seeing the patrol cars and hearing what happened. So, they can see he lived there, Emily said. Yes, the lieutenant replied, which confirms there was no attempted crime. Emily nodded slowly, shame pressing down on her chest. And there's more, the lieutenant added. She pointed to the timestamp. Your call came in after this footage, which means the officers responded to information that didn't match reality. Emily closed her eyes. I was wrong. The lieutenant's voice softened slightly, acknowledging that matters, but doesn't erase the harm. A long silence followed. Finally, the lieutenant said, Marcus Reed has chosen not to press charges at this time. Emily's head snapped up. He hasn't. No, she said. But the department will issue a formal apology, and the detainment has been ruled unjustified. Relief mixed with something heavier. Gratitude didn't feel like enough. As Emily stood to leave, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Marcus. The officer gave me your number. I think we should talk. If you're wondering why he reached out after everything that happened, stay with this, because that conversation changed more than either of them expected. As Emily stepped into the hallway, another officer hurried past, speaking into his radio. Media's outside, he said. Someone leaked the footage. Emily stopped walking, because the story was no longer just between her and Marcus. The hallway buzzed with urgency. Emily froze as voices echoed from the front of the station. Reporters, cameras, questions shouted faster than answers. She had known, in some distant way, that this could become public, but knowing and seeing were different things. An officer guided her through a side exit. We're trying to keep this controlled, he said, but the footage is already circulating. Outside, the air felt sharp. Emily pulled her jacket tighter, as if that could hide her. Her phone vibrated again. Marcus, I didn't leak anything, his message read. A neighbor did. I wanted you to hear that from me. Emily typed back with shaking fingers. I believe you. I'm sorry all over again. They agreed to meet later that afternoon at a small cafe a few blocks from Marcus's building. Emily arrived early, sitting near the window, heart racing every time someone walked in. When Marcus finally stepped inside, conversation around them seemed to fade. He looked the same as before, steady, composed, but there was a new weariness in his eyes. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said, sitting across from her. I didn't know how not to, Emily replied. They talked quietly. About the call, about the detention, about how often things like this happened to people Marcus knew. Emily listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, it wasn't to explain, only to acknowledge. I believed things that weren't true, she said, and I acted on them. Marcus nodded. That's how this keeps happening. Outside, a news van rolled past slowly. That evening, the police department released a statement. The detainment was officially labeled unjustified. The officers were cleared of misconduct. The fault lay squarely with the false report. Emily read the statement alone in her apartment. Her name was not mentioned. Marcus's was, and that, somehow, felt like another injustice waiting to be answered. Emily watched the press conference from her couch, knees pulled to her chest. The police chief stood behind the podium, speaking carefully. The detainment of Mr. Marcus Reed has been ruled unjustified, he said. We regret the distress caused. Regret, not apology. Marcus stood off to the side, quiet, hands folded. Cameras flashed anyway. His name scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Emily's didn't. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. They asked if I wanted to speak. I said no. Emily stared at the words. I understand, she typed back. Then hesitated. If you ever want me to say something publicly, I will. The dots appeared. Disappeared. Then his reply came. I believe you. But this part isn't about you. Emily set the phone down, the weight of that sentence settling deep. For the first time, she didn't try to push it away. 2 days later, she returned to the neighborhood. Not with a badge, not with fear, but with a box of donated supplies for the outreach program. The same block, the same building. This time, she noticed people nodding to one another. Talking, living. Marcus was there, helping unload boxes. You didn't have to come, he said. I know, Emily replied. I wanted to. They worked in silence for a while. It was easier that way. Before she left, Emily stopped at the corner and looked back once more. The place that had terrified her now felt ordinary. Human. Real. The myths she believed hadn't protected her. They had nearly destroyed someone else's life. If this story moved you, subscribe and share, because these moments don't change unless they're seen, heard, and remembered.